If you're anything like me, you probably sit here at the end of the year and wonder where the time went. Once the holidays are behind us, it's time to start looking ahead to the new year and put a plan in place to make sure those New Year's financial resolutions stick. I'm K.C. Smith, Managing Associate with Henssler Financial. In this episode of Planning Priorities, we're going to talk about a few simple things you can do to put yourself in a better financial position. So this time next year, your biggest worry will be whether or not your team is playing in a New Year's Day bowl game. Let's start with something most of us can all relate to, your paycheck. You can learn a lot about your savings, taxes, and spending by looking at your year-end pay stub. Are you maximizing contributions to tax-advantaged retirement plans offered by your employer? The IRS increased the maximum annual contribution limit to defined contribution plans, like a 401k, to $19,500 for 2020, up $500 from 2019. The catch-up contribution for those aged 50 and older in these plans also increased by $500 from $6,000 to $6,500. If you're not contributing up to these limits, that's okay. Every bit of savings helps, especially when you're younger. You should check to make sure you're at least contributing up to the level of the company match, as not doing so is leaving free money on the table. Next, the beginning of the year is a good time to review your tax withholding and make any necessary adjustments. If your income is relatively stable and reliable from year to year, you can use the 2018 tax year, filed in 2019, to get an idea of whether you're withholding too much or too little. If you got a large refund in 2019, you may be able to reduce your withholding some to avoid giving Uncle Sam an interest-free loan on your money. If you ended up owing additional tax in 2018, you may want to adjust your withholding upward to avoid penalties and interest or having to come out of pocket unexpectedly. It's a good time to talk to your tax advisor before he or she ramps up for tax season. Budgeting is another important exercise to conduct early in the year. It can be helpful to drill down into your spending to determine where your money is going. However, many people struggle to find the time to create a detailed budget. If you're wanting a quick back-of-the-napkin glimpse into your annual spending, just look at your year-end pay stub. If your only source of income comes from your paycheck and your tax withholding is accurate, then your take-home pay is equal to your annual after-tax spending. It's that simple. You can adjust for any additional income sources, additional savings or investments, or debt accumulated, but this gives you a quick way to approximate how much you spend on an annual basis. Having that information can be extremely valuable to your overall planning. From knowing whether you have enough saved to an emergency fund, to planning for one-off expenses and allocating your investments, it all starts with spending. Of course, if you have the time to create a detailed budget, that would be ideal. But these are supposed to be resolutions you can stick to. Creating a personal balance sheet can be tremendously helpful in assessing where you are currently and to track where you end up at various periods throughout the year. This is a simple exercise, but simply listing out all your assets and liabilities to come up with a personal net worth can help you create goals for the year. Maybe you have a goal to reduce your debt, or perhaps you're not adequately diversified in your asset location. For instance, if all your money is in tax-deferred accounts, you could find yourself in a bind if you need to access these assets prior to age 59 and a half. Make sure you have a good mix of after-tax, tax-deferred, and tax-free investment vehicles to give yourself more flexibility to draw from whichever account is most beneficial at the time of your need. Speaking of asset allocation, it's also a great time to review and rebalance your portfolio. Selling stocks or other investments for gains in January not only gives you time throughout the year to potentially harvest losses to offset those gains, but you're also deferring the time you have to pay the taxes for as long as possible. Selling the overweight securities and buying the underweight securities is a great systematic way to keep your investment objective in line while adhering to the old financial maxim, buy low, sell high. In summary, taking the beginning of the year to evaluate where you have come from and where you hope to be should pay dividends in the long run. These are financial resolutions that don't require a lot of time or energy, but can position you well for the new year. I'm K.C. Smith, and thanks for joining me on this edition of Planning Priorities.